everyone. And I don't think any of these gentlemen need any introduction, but I will still take the opportunity to make a one-line introduction starting with Anshuman, Chairman and Managing Director for CBRE South Asia, and also the Chairman of the RICS South Asia Board. My first boss on his left, Mr. Anuj Puri, Chairman and Country Head for Jones Lang LaSalle, Mr. Kamal Khaitan, Chairman and Managing Director for Suntech Realty, Mr. Sandeep Ranwal on his left, Director for the Ranwal Group. Let me start with you, Sandeep. Is housing for all by 2022 a realistic vision?
There are certain reasons why I feel affordable housing in Mumbai has become a myth. Is primarily because the government itself wants real estate prices to go up year on year on year. And they link real estate development to a document called the Ready Reckoner, which most of us in real estate are aware of. Every year, the Ready Reckoner price of your house, of your land, of your flat, of your property keeps going up by 20%. A builder's development is purely linked to the Ready Reckoner rates. So you always will find that builder keeps increasing his prices, the housing just keeps going unreachable year on year, and then you feel the home has just become unaffordable. So you cannot think of doing affordable housing through private unless you have the government coming and stepping in and doing economic housing for the social poor.
Okay, let's move to you, Kamal.
Yeah, I think what Sandeep said is true, and definitely. So if you see, obviously first most important three things what we feel, I feel is we need three I's, that is infrastructure and today interest rate reduction and also income generation. Those three things are equally important too. So if there is no infrastructure, you cannot expect the housing to just boom without the infrastructure. Also, if you continue to see that the affordability which Sandeep has just now said, that affordability is going out of the way. Lands are not available. If in tier 1 cities, government will definitely have to increase the FSIs. And definitely if you are looking at more of affordable housing, then tier 2 cities, they have to make the land available. So somewhere government will have to subsidize or contribute if this really 2020 have to become a dream, come true.
Brotin, same question for you.
It can be done. I think that with the new government, with a very aggressive Prime Minister, I think the UD ministry is far more aware of that they need to take action. So I am very hopeful that things will turn out. Whether they meet the target or not, I'm not going to comment on it, and I'm not going to go out on a limb on it. But I think that it can be done. There are three buckets. We need to. One is the bucket on the government. One is that yes, as the panelist rightly said, the government has to do certain things, look at how you can reduce land prices. One of the biggest issues which we face when we are doing affordable housing is the fact that when you're doing it outside of the city center, infrastructure facilities are not available. I think that's something which the government should need to do. The other bucket is what are you going to do for the people who cannot afford to buy, because the informal sector or the grey sector, where people are not having a formal job but are small businessmen, people who work in malls and are in the service sector. What do you do for them? Are you going to give them a loan which is much cheaper than the loan that we all get here in this room? If the mortgage rates can be brought down significantly and put money in the hands of these people, that's the other bucket which you can make. Many things are also the developer has to do. Look at technology, how you can reduce dependence on labor, how you can be best in class in project management. Those are the things which we rarely talk about. We tend to get onto the bashing the government bandwagon very fast, but many of the things are internal which we need to do. We need to become better as a developer. We need to become more efficient. And I think if you collectively work, this will happen. It needs to happen if you want to take India to the next level. We cannot say that we are a 21st century superpower where 20 million people are living in dilapidated or housing which is completely nothing there. Okay,
moving on to Anuj. Anuj, there has been obviously the relaxation in FDI norms. What do you think is going to be the impact on the sector, with the reduced size of projects and the reduced capitalization norms?
After a long time, Sachin, I've seen a government which is seemingly pro-real estate. And I'll say both the pros and the cons of that. So clearly we can see whether it's the smart city or whether it's the priority lending to the affordable housing, bringing down FDI limits from 50,000 square meters to 20,000 square meters, and then allowing FDI to come into completed projects, particularly the retail malls that got announced last week. Equally the REIT guidelines, and I'm told that the finance minister is looking at it more carefully so that double taxation or the dividend distribution taxation policy is looked into that. So clearly there is a huge amount of thrust from the government on bringing in more capital within the real estate sector. That's one part of it. But I just want to continue where I think Brotin touched on this point, and I think it's a very important point, is really the perception of real estate within the government and the perception of real estate within judiciary. And I can tell you it is at the bottom. When you meet up with these government officials, absolutely at the bottom. And whatever we may say to the people who are in this room, it is not about them. It is the people who are outside the room. And I can tell you there are so many rogues in this sector who are there, who are definitely going to create trouble in the sector. I was in Delhi last week. There are buildings that have been sold at 3,000 rupees a square foot apartments in Noida, Greater Noida, 50 floor. And Sandeep, 3,000 rupees they've sold it, 20% brokerage to the broker who's been flocking these apartments. They're never going to be able to deliver it. Look at it, what is the chaos that is going to get created in this? And that is when again the government is going to look at it and says, this is not what we should be really benefiting and giving all these benefits to the sector. There is a huge amount of issues that are in that sector, and I just feel is that there is no threshold to get into real estate. If you look at the pyramid, the three developers who are sitting here, they're the top of the pyramid, and then you've got the middle of the pyramid, and I'm quite okay with that. It is their huge amount of lower, who is fly-by-night operators, brokers turned developers, they had 50 lakhs or 1 crore, went in, paid the deposit, started selling without any approvals in there, and then have suddenly got stuck. And that is where you're going to see a huge challenge. One other point that I would say is, and then perhaps come back to your main question, is that whilst the business sentiment is coming up, whilst you're going to see the stock market, perhaps some of the other sectors coming up, I think there is so much of wrongdoing that has happened in this sector.
Yeah.
It is not going to have the same movement as the rest of the economy. Now, we were thinking is the rest of the economy has gone down, real estate has gone down with it. I'm telling you the rest of the economy will come up. You're going to see in the next 2 or 3 quarters, even the real economy come up. You're not going to see the real estate sector come up. That is what my fear is, that once that becomes visible, that is when the government is going to step back a little bit. Today they are very proactive and they're willing to come along and say, we want to make sure that this sector gets the benefit. It brings a huge amount of employment, all the right things in there. But the moment they see is that their consumer has got cheated by the community, that is when they're going to take a step back and say, look, either we need to bring in more governance here, or we need to bring in more regulators, and that is when, Sandeep, there is going to be more chaos because there's going to be more regulator, and you're not going to like that.
True.
But whatever said and done, I think one has to also reflect the problems that we are creating. So in a sense, and I'll pass it on to Anshuman, in a sense, I'm very positive that the government is looking at it, and as I said, it's all very good things, and it's going to bring a huge amount of liquidity, but a lot of bad things done in that sector, and that has to get out of the system.
Anshuman, moving to you now, what's your take on that?
I think the only way affordable housing can work, besides infrastructure, everything else everybody has discussed, is creating demand for affordable housing. I don't think we have the demand for affordable housing from the point of view that if you look at affordable housing, a lot of the people who can buy those affordable houses do not have accumulated capital to even put down payment on those affordable housing. So government is sort of subsidizing. There's a lot of money lying in the government in different schemes. If they can reduce significantly the mortgage rates, the interest rates on housing, and reduce the 20%. Right now, if somebody wants to take a housing loan, they have to put 20% down. If that is reduced to 5%, for example, there will be a huge amount of people who can actually go buy a house, and that itself will create the demand where developers will be able to go and meet that demand, and also cheap funding to the developer, a lot of tax concessions. We can give for cement, steel, all the inputs, give whatever incentive you have to make it tax free. Let the developer, the moment the developers see big profit in affordable housing, I think there'll be a rush towards building that. So you have to create the demand and the supply by giving huge tax benefits, reduce mortgage rates, reduce the down payment, because a lot of the blue collars, they can't afford it. And we can talk about, making land cheap, doing this and that. That's not going to happen. but this funding mechanism itself will be a big revolution as far as housing is concerned. You talked about the smart cities. I think, first of all, this 100 smart cities, one end it sounds like it's too much, but at least there is a vision, there is something we are working towards. And as far as I'm concerned, smart cities in Indian context is not Wi-Fi, it is basics, that city to have sanitation, water, enough power, roads, parking, schools, etc. The social network itself will make an Indian city smart because we don't even have the basics. And then we can talk about technology, which is much easier. And then what, like Botin said, and this has been done in other infrastructure projects where the government has allocated money to do detailed feasibility studies, etc. So if we plan it well, make SPVs and say, look, this is how we're going to fund it, these are the projects, it is possible. Even if we can achieve even 50 cities, that itself will be better than what we've done in the past. So if really planning is done and we really put vehicles, and we should learn from the past, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to make it easy for foreign as well as domestic capital to participate and invest in these smart cities? Because today I've got the money and I want to do something in smart city. I don't know how to, what is the structure? And one more important fact which is not discussed, to do anything with smart cities, we have to build capacity. If you look at the government does not have the capacity to even utilize the funds there are. So there is a fantastic government scheme called JNNURM scheme, which has huge amount of money allocated. So the government in budgets can allocate money. But the implementation, the government has to play a big part. So a lot of the states, governments who know that money is there, they can write an application, apply for that money for doing sanitation or public transportation. The municipal authorities, the states do not have the people or the capacity to even write that application, apply for that money, get that money, utilize that. So that capacity building at the municipal level, at the city level, state level is a huge area of gap which would be required to do the 100 smart cities. Lastly, I can go on that, but last thing you talked about the FDI coming in and you talked about tier 2. Interestingly, I heard somewhere a developer saying in India it's not tier 2, it's TEAR. He's only felt tier 2. Wherever he's gone in tier 2, it's been tears for him, And I think that will continue because we just do not have the income levels, the consumption in tier 2 cities for developers to go there, for retailers to go there. Yes, real estate is cheap, and that is why a lot of the developers went there. So you open one mall, it does well. The second mall comes, both the malls, drop their what you call sales, etc. So I agree with Anuj. For next several years, I feel unfortunately the development in India will be confined to the tier 1 cities and around tier 1 cities because there's so much development which can happen in tier 1 cities itself. But as a country, we cannot grow till the time the tier 2 cities do not create that consumption, jobs, and expand. We cannot grow as a country. So we'll have to find somehow to get investments to tier 2 cities. FDI, see, what I feel is, yes, people who have invested money in India from outside, they may complain, a lot of them have lost money, some have done well. But my experience is, in spite of all that, money will come to India. India is back as flavor of the season. It is really surprising that in spite of spreadsheet or no spreadsheets, there is still a lot of money lying around the world. Some of it is stupid money, which still comes in. So a lot of times, if when India comes back as a flavor of the season, someone's sitting in the US and saying, look, this is a $5 billion fund. Now India, you're reading about India Newsweek and Time, and Mr. Modi has visited, so is something happening there. Let me allocate some money to an emerging market. And that may be for him only 1% of his fund, but for India it will be $200 million. And they, I'm not exaggerating, a lot of times you say, but why is he doing that? There are 5 people who have not done well here. These are the problems. So my feel is, as the US economy picks up, in 2006 and 6 and 7 or 8, there was huge capital globally. And that capital went across the world, including India, including Africa also. And all the economies picked up. We have not seen that for many years. That cycle will come back. When that cycle comes back, people forget about India or whatever else is happening in the market, the money will come in. and money will come from sovereign funds, because again, there will be capital accumulation, and that capital would need to be invested, and India would get a smaller share, but it will get. So I feel money will start trickling in. It's not going to start coming in very quickly, but that cycle of capital coming back in India, I'm talking about the FDI capital, will pick up once the global economy picks up, once that again capital formation happens and the Indian economy picks up.
Well, I guess what we'll try to now do is look at some predictions for the future. So what I want, Brotin, we'll start with you.
One is definitely on affordable housing, because I think that's a big driver for growth in real estate. I think it's also a great social benefit, because if people can own their own house, I think it is the start of a new cycle in the consumer's life. He owns an asset and he can leverage the asset to grow up in life. So that's something which I firmly believe.
Anshuman?
Very quickly, I would say reforms, and that doesn't need any money, it just needs a government will, be it implementing GST, labor reforms, just making approval process. Every developer complains about this, their projects are delayed because the approval process is so long. Making that simple. There are many judicial reforms, municipal reforms. If there can be a huge push, we've got laws which are there since even before British times, If there's a huge push, that itself will, there are very few countries which you can say that, look, by just doing reforms, they can bring up the economy. Number two, I would say infrastructure. I totally agree. Implementation of projects, that will have the maximum multiplier effect if we can implement infrastructure projects. Now that we're talking about these new ministers who are good, and we have some of them who we can talk about all the funding, etc. Bottom line is, how many roads, dams, airports are we finishing? We need really good project managers, and there should be a big resolve to say, look, in timely manner, next 3 years, 4 years, these are the major infrastructure projects we're going to put in. We'll be power surplus, we have enough roads, etc. And third, there's no shortcut to funding, we need money.
Anuj?
I would say, Sachin, I would have sort of softer issues to handle, and the ones that Brotin and Anshuman have said are the bigger issues. And I said the three softer issues that I would say is, first is to bring in more transparency, governance, accountability, and across all stakeholders in the industry, whether it's the government, whether it's the financiers, the developers. We're like 46th rank in the level of transparency. What is it that we can do to move it up? You move it up, you'll have more money coming in, you'll have cheaper capital coming in, you'll have a lot more visible profits coming in. So I think whatever we can do, and I think RICS does a huge push onto that. The second softer aspect I'll say is we have zero gender diversity. I only know of Devina in real estate industry. I have nobody else. I don't know where she is. But really, we have absolutely zero gender diversity. 85% of our real estate is residential, where it's decided by the wife or the women of the house, and all that you see is men in suits. There has to be something that has to be done on that, and and I can tell you this sector will benefit. Perhaps we guys are only one-sided thinking, and that's why the sector is just going down there. Bring in another approach, another side, it'll become a lot more comprehensive in that. And the third is, I get up every morning and I pray, whoever does the REIT is the right sort of a guy who does the REIT. Because the first guy who is a wrong guy who does the REIT, we are done for life on REITs. And this is what happened on AIMS market, this is what happened on the IPO. And if you get in one wrong guy who's the first guy who does the REIT and he's the wrong guy, we are done in there.
Interesting.
So, whilst we have all the REIT regulations and all that, I just hope is, it is one of these boys sitting in here doing the REIT, who's the right guy who's going to lead it up and have the right attitude, the right format, and believes that the investor needs to make money in there, rather than looking at it that I want to just monetize the bad assets that I have. So I would say is those would be perhaps little less important, but equally pertinent.
Kamal, just your perspective, three
Wish list
things that you would want to
I
do.
would say approvals, and approvals is really very important. And if you see today, we need almost like more than 50 kinds of approval today to start one project. And like more than 50 approvals, unless and until you make it one single window clearance, obviously that is very difficult. Either it has to be online or like e-governance. So that's all, unless and until we do maintain, we get a transparency level. So-called like similarly that unsold inventory, Anuj, if you see that, that has also evolved because people are not sure today which are projects which are not completed, whether people will be, those projects which are not completed, under construction, whether the developer will complete it. Again, the tag of the developer, any real estate developer. So this has, so the main agenda is two things I feel: the developer, how you define a developer, who is a real estate developer, and not anybody and everybody just becomes a developer, and the approval process has to be very, very smooth.
Sandeep?
So, you know, the Prime Minister started this new campaign, Swachh Bharat. So I would love to start a campaign, Swachh Real Estate. So the reason why I say Swachh Real Estate is because we are just bogged down by so much corruption in real estate. Whether you go to the corporation, whether you go to the government, you go to Mantralaya, you go to the local corporator level, you are blackmailed at every step of the way. This primarily happens because we have multiple approving authorities, we have multiple processes. So just simplify the processes, make life simple for us, and we'll actually get a Swachh Real Estate.
Okay, with that, what I'll try to do is summarize some of the key things that we've spoken about. The good thing is that I still hear affordable housing can be possible. I think there are things that need to happen for it to be possible. I think one of the things that's been mentioned is that the government has to be a partner. I thought that was a relevant point. Secondly, there is obviously a need to build infrastructure. The third aspect that Anuj mentioned, I thought that was a very relevant point. You made very pertinent points about the fact that while there are good developers, but there is a significant base which is actually impacting the larger perception of the sector. I think we've got to cleanse the perception of the sector. I think, I'm going to link it back to what Sandeep said, Swachh Real Estate. So I think changing the perception of the sector and cleansing ourselves, I think is going to be very important. There are lots of them. Approvals, of course, we all know, so I'm not going to dwell too much. Land acquisition is important. But finally, I think I always make it a point, and I'm glad that a lot of people mentioned the fact that there is a need for good skilled manpower. That will go a long way in ensuring that there is a focus on delivery of projects. And, while a few developers may be focused, but it's not necessarily the norm for the industry. So again, emphasis on skills development would be another key area that one would want to focus on. With that, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank all the panelists on behalf of RICS, all the audience who've all been here all day listening to various discussions. And with that, I'll conclude the session. Thank you so much.